The OEMs have to take care about this for the seamless integration of developmental parts if they want to develop fast enough to meet the competition from Asia, and they are responsible to 99% to make it happen.
Yeah, we can just reiterate, the foundry industry is ready to take on that challenge.
Yeah,
and support.
Wonder how many car makers going to call me and be very angry tomorrow.
The foundry industry is ready, and the foundry industry is also open for new models or approaches.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Eurogos Executive Circle specials. This is the fifth and therefore last episode where we talk about the topics of the Executive Circle. The first four were more about our industry, and now we expand the scope towards the OEMs and discuss the OEM as a part of the value chain together with Katrin Grebe. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Mr. Niklas, Mr. Sederström. Thank you for giving me the chance for this podcast.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So we know you. I kind of assume that some of our listeners may not know you, Ms. Grebe. So could you give us a short introduction to yourself?
Yes, of course. Yeah, my name is, as you already said, Katrin Grebe, and I'm the managing director of a family-owned company named Kramer and Grebe. And this company is a toolmaker. It's placed in the middle, or we always say in the heart of Germany, so between Cologne and Frankfurt, somewhere in the valleys. And we do tooling for all kinds of casting processes, for all kinds of alloys. So we have a wide range or diverse toolings, and such as core boxes, and of course all different kind of dies, high pressure dies. Also, we do low pressure and gravity dies. And for the cast iron industry, we also do patterns if it is required.
A lot of products.
Yeah, a lot of products is maybe our US selling point, or makes a difference to our competitors, that we have this a wide range. And yeah, as I said, thank you for giving me the chance. And I'm excited to be a part of the European Executive Circle, because this gives me the chance to create a future for the, as I would say, great foundry industry in Europe, and not an old-fashioned industry. It also has a lot of new technologies involved already.
Absolutely. Well, so the topic of today, the OEMs as a part of the value chain, it has a definition, and it is to discuss how the role of the OEMs in the value chain for the development of new cars and platforms, and how to get into collaboration resulting in higher pace in development to meet the international competition. A very long sentence, but basically how to integrate the OEMs to help them to be more successful. That's my interpretation of the thing. First of all, you were in this table that discussed this topic, and could you give us a summary of how the discussion went on at your table?
First of all, the intention is that European companies in the high-pressure die casting industry are increasingly faced with international competition. And regarding the economic, the political, or industrial frameworks, European companies, they are faced also with disadvantages compared to our counterparts in international regions. And on this base, we thought in a networking group, we can identify our expertise from every partner who is in the network, and identify also projects and customers to give a new full service approach by a deeper cooperation to find new solutions for better competitiveness.
Yeah, what do we see is hindering this then? I mean, you have a pre-studies, you have a pre-design, pre-development, and then all of a sudden you move into the industrialization projects. my belief system is there are different kind of organizations or people that you meet, and I see a big ditch or a hurdle to overcome here. Do you see the same, or what problems do you see for this kind of integration of the OEM the whole way?
Well, there are a lot of problems we have to solve there. First of all, we have to identify the right network partners, the role of the network partners, bring them together. We have to find models. How can we act in this group? And of course, we have to find a marketing concept. How can we convince our customers that this new approach by a network partner group bringing the solution? We also have to find a way on the marketing side to get the first step.
So what do you think? Why is that marketing so crucial for the industry to step into a more seamless cooperation with the OEM? Why isn't that happening by itself?
Yeah, it's a good question. Why? Maybe there are also different issues. Why not? First of all, we already have really contracts and frameworks which are really strict in Europe. We are not really open for these approaches. And for a networks approach, you cannot come with this standard contracts. You have to make different agreements. And also, it's not only from the customer side, it's also from the suppliers or from the network partners. We have to find a really open communication channel. We have to make a lot of transparency in this process. And we have to find shared goals and as I said, communication, so that it is a win-win situation for all of us. And I think our customers rely really on a confidential process. And I think we also have to step into this front-loading process to really convince with our approach. Because in the front-loading process, especially as a toolmaker, we can see that an idea for a casting part, the casting process, and very especially the tool have to get hand in hand to avoid costly or compromise solutions in a really early stage. And I think because of this different suppliers you need to talk with, because of this confidential part in the automotive industry, I think it's a great step to start with this new approach.
When I started in the industry in the 90s, I started at Ericsson. It's a telecom company that's automotive. We had industry experts in surface treatment, machining, casting, and so forth. And then when I left Ericsson 7-8 years later, we had zero. Would you say that in general terms, the competence and the know-how in casting has gone down or up at the OEMs?
Yeah, the competence has gone down at the OEMs, not really in the deepness, but maybe in the volume.
In the volume.
Because, that's what I think. So this is also something which blocks any innovations or especially speed.
Or in other words, they need you. They need your competence because they have a lack of it. They don't have the volume.
Yes.
But on the other side is, who are you talking to actually? When you see you have very good communication and development phases with the pre-development, and then comes the industrialization, which is a totally different department. Every time you have a stop in between, and when you have the final industrialization, then there's another breaking point when it goes over to purchasing, and you have a restart every time of the same project and starting fresh. And as a foundry or as a toolmaker, if you're bringing in a lot of knowledge, and as you mentioned it, that's something you rely on to pay your people to make a profit on that. And you don't want to have that knowledge shared with the whole world for free, and they are profiting, giving it to someone who's way cheaper with some beneficial advantages being somewhere far east. So if you want to put in the work and get the best product in the first phase of your product, like you said, in the front loading, in the pre-development, then you need to be sure that you get awarded the part later on to produce.
Yeah, I think the way Mrs. Grebe pointed out that there is a communication, there's a non-disclosure thing, but it's also some kind of a contract that goes seamless from the start of the group basically to the SOP. I mean, these are pretty harsh takeaway for our dear customer, the OEM, I would say. But the funny thing is that if you look in Asia, it seems to be working. The newcomers on the market, they seem to have this, all of them.
Yeah. also Asia and also in the U.S. market, you can see they are much more open to collaborate with their partners. It's not only suppliers, they have a partnership in this business. And did it change? And I think this partnership, I'm running the business now since 25 years as a general manager. And before I was in the company already 10 years. So I can look back on 35 years and looking back at the 90s, so the beginning of this century, it was daily business that you talk with the developers in the automotive industry, that you were asked, how can we cast this? What do you suggest? What kind of tooling, what kind of process? And this in former times, was more normal. And I think that's how the Asian market or the US market does act much more than we do here in Europe.
I totally agree. And if it's this important, would you say that there's a need of some R&D, research and development, just to see the differences in how we work around these questions, Asia, Europe, America?
Well,
Or
there
is
is
it
a
that
need.
simple? There's a need,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, there's always a need for R&D. You can learn more, you can get new ideas on this, but I think there's not the time. We don't have the time to first make R&D, and as you said, it's that simple. We just have to do it. Yeah, it's a little bit like Nike. Just do it. Yeah. Well, of course, in between the partners, we also have to find models, as I said, communication and the transparency and fairness, and also with the customers, as Niklas just said. You give them all the knowledge in advance, and then they start purchasing process with cheaper Asian suppliers. This should not be the goal.
But the thing is, if we look at it, I'm going to be a little bit bold now. The car makers are the guys to win because it will be a faster development with more competence, more front loading. There's a lack of contract, there's a lack of understanding for a seamless integration from concept to SOP. Isn't this to 99% a question for the OEMs? I mean, who owns the problem, actually?
Yes, of course, you're absolutely right. The primary responsibility lies with the OEMs, as they are the players directly competing with the new market entrants, and they are inside and active participation at the crucial process anyhow. Yeah, because they have to talk with all the partners. As I look from the perspective as a toolmaker, I sometimes speak with the machine supplier, sometimes with the automation, but processes more in front, alloy producer or machining at the end, we even don't talk with normally. So he is inside all of this process, and he also has the benefit at the end, because we are talking from speed or pace at all. So this means he can win time to market. And what I didn't mention so far is, of course, we would like to point out is with this networking partners, a total cost of ownership approach, so that at the end, for all, a win-win situation is possible.
Yeah, especially the total cost of ownership that's coming up so often. And when you talk to purchasing departments, it says, yeah, that's something we want to do one time in the future. But then it comes back to who has the cheapest first price, who has the cheapest investment costs. And then it's bought the cheapest product on that basis. But then what comes in the production line, in the purchasing process that is in the series, nobody cares about. And especially with that collaboration, which, as you said, is going on, especially we had that for giga castings where no one supplier could build up the whole lines. Started there very quickly. And I think that also transformed into other corporations throughout the process chain. And with that, you get way better parts that are cheaper in the whole production, even though you have to put the work in front and have for cost at the very beginning. But these costs pay out multiple times as you get the brightest minds together. And yes, the tool will be more expensive. Yes, the machine will be probably maybe a bit smaller, but you have these advantages over the time. And but then there's compliance on the OEM level, that if you commit to one supplier group setting up, then you have these compliance issues. And I think then it's up to the OEM if they want to compete in an international market with the other competition and the new OEMs that are way slimmer in their overhead. There's no way around it to kill your ghosts and start collaborating.
Yeah, and even if the machine is more expensive, the tool is more expensive, but you may have more productivity and you maybe need only 5 machines instead of 10 machines. So you can achieve a real great gap by joining the partners.
Yeah. Or even if you just have a tool that works for the full 100,000 shots without having 3 people behind the line grinding off all the heel cracks.
Yeah.
These costs are not evaluated anywhere. They're just then at the
Right.
end of the foundry, they're saying, oh, we're losing money on that part and we don't know why.
Yeah,
I think it's
exactly.
about friction cost. There's no way in a structured way in Europe, what I know, to actually understand the accounting of the tool cost, the production cost, transportation cost. I mean, I have customers that are flying castings from China on a weekly basis. I mean, what does it cost? We don't know. It's another account. So the holistic view of the thing is probably a problem for the OEMs, I think.
But then it comes down to who's stepping on whose competencies. And then if you're interfering with another department, you trigger a war within the department. So it's probably like the supply chain would be ready, but the OEM is fighting their own battles.
Yeah, you should load your PowerPoint cannons, gentlemen. We're going to war.
That's also a point we discuss in the European Executive Circle or Die Casting Network, because with whom do you talk? You talk with the purchasing department. They will not have the competence to decide, yes, we will start with these network partners here. They only have to require tools, machines, alloy, whatever, but not the package. Yeah.
No, it's way too late when it's in purchasing, because then you have to clear timeline when to go to market, and then you cannot go back into the development phase and find out what you can do. It has to be way early and then transitioning through there. So you definitely don't want to have the engineers for the pre-development doing the purchasing, but what is decided and found out is the best solution in the pre-development should be industrialized and then also purchased from these guys that develop that and put in the know-how. Sure, there should be boundaries that you don't go off the rails in the pricing, but there shouldn't be no issue and the best solution should win.
I don't know about this with pricing. I mean, if you take the material times 2 and then you have the as cost price, and the difference is plus minus 5%. And I mean, those 5%, if you're overpaying, is pretty easy to wear out from sourcing problems, bankruptcies, and other things that happen that we normally call friction. Is a very nice word, a very lot of perfume on that one, but
or just the overhead.
Yeah, the overhead. Yes.
Yeah, that you spend more money in trying to save money than you actually would do when you confirm with which supplier you're working on.
But getting back to it, I mean, Ms. Gurebe, this is a question about the culture inside the OEMs then.
A culture, or no, it's maybe more the process. I like to say they are all in a Harvard process, how you learn it at the university. Yeah, you have the departments, and one department gives it to another, and a creative new process. There's no structure. Maybe the culture, but not the structure. And as we already mentioned, whom do you talk with the purchasing? We should talk with the developers, but who's the developer at the OEM? It's often an external development service provider or something like that. Yeah.
We cannot give up.
No, we don't. That's why we started.
Now it comes down more to the sensibility, how to sensibilize the OEM to that there is an issue and there is a possible way to produce better and cheaper cars with your existing supply base in Europe. How do you can make them aware of their issues? And on which level should we have to go there?
Maybe I like to come back to a post I have seen last week from our president of the VDA, Hildegard Müller, when she was on a congress with the automotive industry. And positively, I recognize that she also pointed out these words pace and collaboration, which could be a potential for the automotive industry. Maybe this can help us to get the foot in the door, as we say in Germany.
Well, the same expression in Sweden. I'm just sitting here and thinking about this process change and culture change, and it's been almost like 2 generations of employees, paving the way for where we are. And that leads me to the conclusion that a newcomer, a non-legacy producer, has so much easier to actually adapt to other ways of working, and maybe they are more important than the actual people inside it.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. This is also something which the networking group is focusing on. It's not only the standard or the premium OEMs we have here in Europe or in Germany. It's especially also the non-legacy manufacturers, and they don't have any knowledge of the casting process, especially. They don't even look at it in the front, but they are more open to get a consultancy, for example, or to say, yeah, I not only need a toolmaker, I also need a machine, and I also need automation and things like that. So it makes sense to bring you all together. I think they are more open, and this is also a focus we do have.
Yeah. Same for us. The first car maker that I adapted Riocast was Rivian in the US.
Yeah.
Now we have the others, but the others took 5 years. Rivian took 2. But it tells you something. I mean, the telecom guys, they're also jumping on this, but European-centered OEMs might not be that quick to adapting new technology.
Yeah. Well, I think the problem is with the non-legacy manufacturers or the new entrants manufacturers in the automotive industry, they don't look at this stage on a high volume process. So that's, I think the casting process isn't that much in the focus. Other processes, of course, digitization or kind of new technology, whatever. But the casting process, I think, is very much in the back.
But also for non-legacy OEM, when you start up building a car and you say, okay, I have to have these stamping lines, I have to build up these suppliers and get the parts for them, discuss with 20, 30, 40 different suppliers. Isn't it way easier just to go to one foundry, say, hey, we need a few castings here, a few there, and you get the final spec, what you need, instead of building up the supply chain, which also for our legacy OEM, it took them decades to build up to the level where we're now.
Yeah.
And to the functioning what we have.
Yes, it's in both perspective. It is way easier for the manufacturer and also for the networking partners. It should be easier, I think.
I think there's a very, very nasty argument also, to join a group and build up something with a few customers, because I seriously doubt that we'll have this many brands in 5 years from now. So, sending shipment of tools, you have the lost payments, you will have a lot of credit risks. There are 95 of them in China, and we have a bunch in the US, and even a couple of opportunistic companies in Europe. And the way the world looks today, I would be surprised to see them all survive 5 years from now.
Yeah, of course. There will be a consolidation. That's, I agree, that will happen, of course.
Anyway, models of collaboration. So basically, I hear you say it more or less in different ways. To summarize, there are 3 ways. Continue like today, be slow, right? Do your conceptual design, and then you have a ditch, and then you go into industrialization. Everybody's happy because you don't need to change the way you work.
Be slow and lose the market.
Yeah. But I mean, that's not your problem, but it will be your problem. You can contract a network, which is great. You can do this effort in paperwork, legal stuff, open books, pricing, budgetary offers. Again, I think it's, when it comes to casting, pretty ridiculous. I mean, the cost is the cost basically all the time. Or you can hire you guys as consultants.
But it is how it is. Even if it's ridiculous, it is like that.
Yeah, but it's ridiculous because if you start to look at the price and the cost, I mean, there's a certain, by natural law, what the cost of a ownership of a die-casting machine is, and then you can run it good or bad. That's one thing. The second thing that is far more important is what kind of tariffs and subsidiaries do you have, and then you have the salary on top of it. So if the purchaser want to reinforce the subsidized castings from a certain region in the world, I mean, go ahead, but then you don't have anybody to ask in Europe in a few years. Your call,
Yeah.
but then you're not strategic.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, but we also talked a lot about the misuse of the word strategic. There might be different strategies from different people or departments. So therefore, I would be quite careful with that word, what that means. But in any way, I think that's another important point, that if you kill out the supplier industry that you have now because they are a few cents per part more expensive, then you have a very bad time for the next iteration of that part, which will come in 5 to 7 years, depending on the OEM. And I think then it will cost them a multiple of what they are saved earlier, if they still have a market where they can sell the cars to.
Yeah. And the knowledge is gone.
Knowledge is gone now. And then you look at all these consultants running around and helping people when they screw up. And they're charging what, 180 euros per hour. Yeah, that's not much, but do it 2,000 hours a year. And then I think I can name at least 12 of these people just in Europe.
Mhm. Yeah.
With hotel and space. I mean, those 5 cents, you have to stamp it out many times to start to balance that cost. So
Yeah.
interesting. So we're blaming the OEMs. It's the OEMs.
Yeah, there are a lot of costs you can save. As you said, it's absolutely right. It's even from the tooling side, it's ridiculous. With the tooling, you can so much process money. Also for energy, for you can look at your CO on your footprint, on your sustainable footprint. Everything is involved, at least in the tooling. And from this perspective, I think it will be also a big discussion with the network partners where we aren't yet. I honestly have to say, we don't come to that point, which role has which partner in the group. This is, I think...
You're so polite. I had 5 tools from a certain country in Asia to our small workshop. We're not a producer, or to our customer. 2 was stuck in the harbor for at least 6 to 8 weeks. So, okay, there goes the lead time thing. Everything was late, cost like crazy in the aftermath. And then the third one was so leaky, so it was almost no point of adjusting the vacuum because it was leaky like a bucket with a hole. So I don't know. Yeah, you say 35%, but what do you get? What do you get? So speak about sustainability when we're flying the parts from the US to Asia back and forth. All right, we just burn some kerosene here, but otherwise we're pretty good to go. Oh, the bill! I thought the customer was picking that one up.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, so how do we move this forward? It's an executive circle, I guess.
Well, I think it's not only the executive circle. This is not the part our group discusses, but what the executive circle at all discusses, that we need also to bring together these different initiatives or these different groups we do have in Europe, or they are already exist, like the Verbände or things like that. And we need to make more lobby work. And it's not only the executive circle. We have to look over the border and bring other groups also into a common program, maybe.
So the question is so big, so it's going to outgrow the discussion at the executive
circle. Yeah, that's, I think everybody is already discussing.
I think it's a great initiative, this executive circle. I mean, there's a lot of nice people with good experience and very, very well reputed coming together. And then if things are growing out of it, because the questions are so big, then it's a good thing because they have been initiated and it's giving some energy. And I kind of like it. Yeah.
You see the collaboration throughout the whole process chain already coming from the executive circle. And that's something that's new, and that's a great benefit, that you don't have to talk to each supplier individually. Now you get a full solution from several hands, but they're all connected with each other. So that's...
Yeah, maybe most important at all, it's not a secret club.
Yeah.
It's actually an open space. Oh. Yeah. Interesting. So the summary is the OEMs have to take care about this for the seamless integration of developmental parts if they want to develop fast enough to meet the competition from Asia. And they are responsible to 99% to make it happen.
Yeah, we can just reiterate, the foundry industry is ready to take on that challenge.
Yeah,
and
Yeah,
support.
that's nice.
yeah. Wonder how
Yeah.
many car makers going to call me and be very angry tomorrow.
The foundry industry is ready, and the foundry industry is also open for new models or approaches to achieve this goal.
That sounds great. And then I think is a perfect ending of this podcast episode. And again, thank you very much for being with us, Ms. Grebe. And we're looking forward to meet you again, I guess at Eurogas or Executive Circle next time we see each other. And again, thank you for being together with us today.
Thank you.
Perfect. Then thank you for listening that far. Don't forget to subscribe, and then we'll see us in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
It is in. Sayonara.